program tonight. We have a lot that I want to show you, so we're going to get right into it. And I want you to understand that what you're fixing to see is news. It's news that you've probably seen throughout the week, and many of you that watches Christian television and watches this program, well, you don't watch the news, and so it's news for you. So this is news, and I would ask you, what else should we talk about or deal with? News is what's happening in our world, what's happening around us. That is what news covers, what's going on. The difference between this and other programs is this is the news looked at through the filter of the Word of God. By doing so, we're able to see what's going on and see what's going on. Jesus said that you have eyes to see, but you see not, which means that you can see what's going on, but not see what's going on. He said, having ears to hear, ye hear not, meaning very simple. Simply put, you can hear what's going on and yet not hear what's going on. Just receiving the news, what's happening, the facts and the footage of the events that's taking place, does not and cannot properly point out to you what is actually going on. Only the Bible can properly define it for us and leave us understanding, knowing, seeing, and hearing what's going on. We're going to look at wickedness. Well, now right off the bat, that's something that Fox News don't talk about. It's something CNN don't talk about, at least it exposed itself. It's not something that any news group, any news organization, it's not what they talk about. Do they talk about evil? Do they talk about wickedness? Do they talk about God? So they show us the news. They show us what's happening and exclude the person, the wisdom, and the knowledge of God. Because for whatever reason they believe they have to. The Bible tells us and clearly states it, that the beginning of all wisdom is the fear of the Lord, the fear of God. That is the beginning of all wisdom and knowledge. And those who hear it through the ears of God, see it through the eyes of God, that is, by His Word, you are the ones that truly know what's going on, and the only ones that we can truly hope will ever make a difference. Now I'm going to talk about the wicked. And I'm going to talk about specifically the wicked and the poor. The wicked is the enemy of the poor. So you have to define who the wicked is, and the wicked is never going to stand up and say, I'm the wicked. No. They're going to say smooth talk, lying facts, well-dressed, tell you that they're not wicked. You have to be able to see what they really are. And if not, you will get bit, and we have gotten bit by the wicked. The enemy of the poor are the wicked. So the Bible tells us who the wicked is and what the wicked does, and it specifically tells us what the wicked does with the poor. Let me explain something to you. There is an entire party that has made their power base, their livelihood, off of the poor, specifically the black race. The party of which we speak of are the Democrats. You see, welfare works like this. Welfare or assistance should be designed and built around helping an individual get up on his own. But you see, when a person gets up on his own and he makes his own money, he then begins to see how wicked taxes, excessive taxes, are. So he no longer votes for those who wants to increase taxes. Therefore, this party called the Democrats loses power. So what the wicked does, what they do, is they offer welfare on a permanent basis, which then guarantees perpetual poverty. It is not hard to figure out. And whenever a family, 80% of poverty is taught. That's just a fact. When a family is raised only in poverty, there is an 80, almost 100% chance the children being raised up will also go into poverty. And as long as they stay in poverty, disguised by a welfare system designed to keep them in poverty, then generation after generation after generation stays in poverty, because to those who needs that vote, they can't help them get out of it. It's like the football player Emmitt Smith. He was always against taxes. Great running back for the Dallas Cowboys. Mr. Smith then got his first $1 million paycheck as a pro football player. And guess what? He was no longer for taxes. Well, see, that's what happens whenever you get out of welfare. And what the wicked wants to do is tell you they're helping you, while in fact they have designed a system to perpetually keep you in poverty. Why? For the vote. It's what has happened. The wicked will create these revolutions of freedom, like the old devil did himself in the Garden of Eden, telling Eve that you won't die like God said if you eat that fruit. You will become as He is. I will liberate you. Only to damn them and turn their garden of paradise into a land of thorns and thistles. They will give you revolutions always to help you. Like the sexual revolution. Remember the sexual revolution? Freed us and then diseased us. The sexual revolution. Everybody just willy-nilly, free as a bird. It's your thing, baby. Do what you want to do. Those was the catchwords of the songs of the sexual revolution. But do you know what followed the sexual revolution? The legalization of abortion. Do you know how abortion became legalized? Abortion, by law, Supreme Court issued the verdict that a child in the womb is not a person. Did you hear me? That is the legal stance. That is why and how you are able to kill the child. Because it is lawfully deemed not a person. Therefore, it does not have the right to pursue happiness. It does not have the right to live. Did you know that in the slave days, a Supreme Court passed the law, listen, black man, that the black man was not a person. Exact same words. Who was it that passed that law? It was Democrats. Blacks are not persons. Therefore, they can be sold, stole, beat. They can be killed because they do not have the right to pursue happiness or even the right to live. That was the law in the 1800s. They are not a person. Sexual revolution comes along, frees us to do anything we want to do. And then the same Democrats passes the law concerning babies inside the womb. 33% of every abortion that takes place in this country, 33% is on one race and one race only, the black race. Do you not see what I'm telling you? Perpetually put you in poverty, generation after generation, to secure your vote by not issuing you means to get out of that poverty, to make your own money, knowing then that if you do, you will vote to keep your money, and the taxes are gone, and these people called Democrats lose their power. So then, as it was back then, they bring a sexual revolution where they deem that children inside the womb are not a person, is not a person. And then they set their sights on this evil called abortion, on the black race. They kill others too, but the Ku Klux Klan also killed others. And you do know that they were Democrat. I have to tell you that. Because if you're a black person and you're 30 years old or 40, you probably don't even know that Martin Luther King was a Republican, and you need to be told that. So they deemed blacks as, Democrats, deemed blacks as not persons. Then they bring a poverty, then they bring welfare. And they focus their guns toward the black race. And they get the block vote by keeping them in poverty. Then they offer the sexual revolution. And then they bring in abortion and use the same term they used in the 1800s. The child inside the womb is not a person. And then they point the abortion gun at the black race. That's just a fact. The enemy of the poor are the ones that perpetually and constantly uses the poor. From the book of Psalms, chapter 10, verse 8 and 9. He, talking about the wicked, sitteth in the lurking places of the villages. In the secret places doth he murder the innocent. His eyes are privily set against the poor. Privily, that means privately. You don't know his eye is set against you, and he disguises that his eye is set against you as he sits in the village to murder the innocent. He, being the wicked, lieth in wait secretly. As a lion in his den, he lieth in wait to catch the poor. Why? To use him for himself. He doth catch the poor when he draweth him. When he draweth him into his net. Draw him with what? Draw him with bait. Tell him he's out of slavery. Take a chain off his leg and then put it on his brain and bind him to a post for the rest of his life and 3, 4, and 5 generations in front of him to poverty by dangling free bread and free cheese when there is nothing in this world free, my friend, nothing. It is an ugly thing what the wicked does with the poor. No man is an enemy of the poor. That teaches him a work ethic. That teaches him a work value. Any good, any decent man, any good, any decent neighbor will help a productive soul who's going through hard times out of a bind, knowing that the man, once he gets his foot back on the ground, will take care of and fend for himself. The black race You've allowed yourself, black man, you've allowed yourself to be mentally raped. And it's known nationwide now. Mentally raped by the very people who did it from the beginning. And I might add that in that party is filled with black people also. Did you know, black man, did you know that in the slave days, only 1% of the entire nation owned slaves? Only 4% of the people in the South owned slaves. There was a group also called free blacks, which numbered 7,000 to 10,000. Of the free blacks, they possessed 27% of them held slaves. Those are facts that, again, cannot be denied. The party now that has betrayed and used and lured the poor into its net to gain its own power, Maxine Waters, still in a district she's been on for 40 years now, is still in dire straits, is in perpetual poverty, broke down and run down, while Maxine lives in a $4 million home. Maxine is elected for 40 years by a district that is 96% black, lives in a $4 million home in a district that's 98% white. Black man, it is time now for you to do something for yourself. And as determined as you was to kick the chains off your feet, you got to pull them off your brain. That's all there is to it. For you see, that party is filled with white people and black people, and together they're doing the same thing that they've always done. Hence, bringing to mind the warning that Martin Luther King gave to you and to us and to us all. Mr. King said plainly, I would no sooner be bitten by a black snake than I would a white snake, testifying to the fact that Mr. King knew and understood in his movement there were some black snakes. Black man, you do believe, don't you, that a black man will put you in bondage? You're not so naive as to believe that because a man is your color, he will always be straight with you. Not when you still live in poverty after 40 years of their rule and they live in $4 million homes. Something, brother, ain't right. Now, let me show you something else that the wicked does with the poor. We have thousands of people now marching across the land to force their way into America illegally. That is called an invasion. There are women, there are children, 80% men, criminals and other things among them. They've proved that now. They have proved also that this march has been paid for, orchestrated, and designed by people in Venezuela and other people who wants to attack the sovereignty of America. That has been proven. They've got the names and the people. What is it that these soul stealers that wants to tell you these people are just in need? Let me show you a quick video clip of what you see throughout the thousands. What you're not going to see in these crowds, you're not going to see people who are suffering from malnutrition. Every one of them not only are healthy, but they are in fact overweight, many of them. Wherever it is that they're coming from, Honduras or wherever, there is one thing for sure. They have not lacked food. It is obvious and it is clear that these are healthy people. These are healthy men. These are healthy women carrying flags of another country and forcing their way into this country. If they ain't done anything else, they've eat. That's for sure. But yet those that wants to use this as an emotional crisis to put these people at the gate, to have them turned away, and then show you the pictures of the poor souls who may not have everything they want, a color television in their country, but they are not mistreated or abused. They are all healthy. They are all overweight, many of them overweight. It's not a people that is in dire need. But the soul stealers will tell you that. And those that use the poor or the needy care not about these people's track across this land, nor the drug pushers, nor the dope men of which they come in contact with, nor the threats upon their lives. They only want this bunch to come stand at a gate to help this party that calls themselves Democrat regain power. They could care less about the struggles of the 1,000 miles these people have to watch. These are the abusers of the poor. And then finally, well, the head dog of them all, Hillary Clinton gives us a lesson in civility, but shows how the human brain works when the human brain is given into pathological lies and lying. It rewires the brain so that you just become a fool. You talk and don't even realize the fool you're making of yourself. But the sad thing is people who sees what's going on and hears what's being said, who can't really see it or hear it, don't see the fool that's being made. Here this woman sits and gives us the definition of incivility and applies that definition to civility. Watch this.
About that.
You cannot be civil to a political party that wants to destroy what you stand for, what you care about. That's why I believe if we are fortunate enough to win back the House and/or the Senate, that's when civility can start again.
Man, if you can't hear that, you're a bigger fool than she is. She just said that civility can start back when we get power. But you cannot be civil with a party or a people who goes against everything you believe. That's incivility. We can have civility when she gets power. But what about when she brings to law homosexual marriage, transgenderism, all the things that we don't believe, that we don't accept? Then by her own words, we then have the right to be uncivil. This is a woman who is preaching civility and defining it with incivility. It's crazy. And then finally, listen to the beef that CNN, Democrats, has with the transgender issue and possibly removing the right of transgenderism. Listen to what their beef is. See, do you catch it?
The New York Times reporting the Trump administration wants to legally define transgender out of existence by officially recognizing only a person's gender at birth. So even if a person is transitioned, they could be retroactively required to be identified as whatever gender they were born as, regardless of physical changes or how they choose to be identified. So Caitlyn would still be Bruce to the U.S. government.
Not to be sarcastic, nor to try to be ugly. To simply state science and fact. Caitlyn is Bruce. Period. Biologically, Caitlyn is Bruce. And when Bruce stands before the Almighty God to give an account at the judgment seat of Christ for what he hath done in his own body, God will see him as Bruce, not Caitlyn. Now look at the definition that these people have trouble with. Now remember, these people love science when it comes to the false science of weather warming. They love science. But when it comes to the science of gender, look at what it is they have a beef with. Sex means a person's status as a male or a female. Well, don't it? A child is born a male, and someone is stupid enough to identify that child as a male? This is insanity, friends.
Good Lord's done about got tired of this mess. Think the world done pushed a good thing a little bit too far, I guess. Well, you're lying and you're cheating and you're stealing and you're killing and other things. We done incurred the wrath of the good king. I think he's about to make a change. Oh, there ain't no sense in the way things is today. You take your doctors and your lawyers and your preachers and your teachers, Lord, they're perverted their ways. Lord, you can't trust a soul. Watch your hand that you hold might be the one that cut your throat. Lord knows people I hate to say, but it's just that way. Lord knows people I hate to say, but it's just that way.
You will see a time in which we as a nation finally recognize relationships between two men or two women as just as real and admirable as relationships between a man and a woman.
Judge in the law makes no sense at all. Can't tell whose side they on. Well, it's crooks judging crooks, claim they go by the book. It's a dirty, rotten shame. Lord knows people I hate to say, but it's just that way. For my dad and my brothers and my sisters, cause it's just that way. It's just that way. Praying that the Lord won't wait for too long, cause it's a mess down here today. It's just that way.